Vampire, Baba Yaga. The Russian military named this one themselves. They called it Baba Yaga, boogeyman, English equivalent, the witch from Slavic folklore who flies through the night and takes people. They weren't being poetic, they were afraid of it. Vampire is a hexacopter, 6 rotors, 15-kilogram payload, 20-kilometer range. Confirmed in over 1 million combat missions, according to Ukraine's Ministry of Defense. $10,000 per unit. At night, you fly it over trench lines and drop munitions. You drop anti-personnel mines at access routes. You drop supplies to troops surrounded by floodwater. When Russia blew the Kakhovka Dam in June 2023, an entire district flooded. Vampire crews were delivering food, water, and medicine to people cut off from every road and crossing. One platform, bombing runs, remote mining, humanitarian supply drops. What most people miss, in the most heavily jammed battlefield in history, most drones that lose signal fall. They become expensive wreckage in contested ground. Vampire has an autonomous return home function that activates on signal loss. It doesn't fall, it turns around and comes back. A $10,000 drone that survives electronic warfare and returns for the next mission is worth 10 times a more expensive drone that doesn't. Russia named it after a monster. The Vampire kept flying. Punisher. The Punisher, built by UA Dynamics for Ukrainian Special Operations Forces. February 25, 2022. Ukraine has no cruise missiles, no ATACMS, no air force capable of reaching Russian rear positions, nothing, except one drone that weighs less than your gym bag, drops a bomb with 4-meter accuracy, and then flies home. You launch it from a catapult. It climbs to 400 meters, drops a UB-75HE bomb, hits within 4 meters of the target, and turns around. It lands, gets reloaded, flies again. That last part is what most people miss. Every other strike drone in 2022 was a kamikaze, one use, gone. The Punisher broke that logic. When your drone comes back, 2 things happen. You spend less money per kill, and your operators get better with every single flight. Experience compounds. The enemy gets hit again and again. Range, 45 kilometers. Top speed, 198 kilometers per hour. Cruising speed, 80. Payload, up to 2 kilograms. It also carries medical containers, drops medicine to troops cut off from supply lines. In the recon strike chain, Punisher works like a sniper with a spotter. The recon platform finds the target. You send the Punisher. It takes the shot. It comes home. One drone, reusable, surgical. That's the template that rewrote close-range strike doctrine from day one. Dragon, also known as Dracarys. The name is intentional. FPV or multicopter base, 10 to 20 kilometer range, and a warhead that does something most drones can't. It burns through reinforced concrete. Thermite. Dragon carries a thermite charge that generates temperatures most metals and building materials simply cannot survive. You're not getting a blast radius, you're getting a precision torch that eats through a bunker roof, then keeps burning inside. Here's what most people miss. You can harden a position against fragmentation. Blast-proof bunkers exist. You cannot harden anything against sustained thermite heat. Dragon found the gap between blast-proof and fireproof, and it lives there. The FPV guidance means you see exactly where the drone enters. You pick the angle, you pick the weak point in the structure. The charge does the rest. In assault operations, Dragon became the pocket engineer of the Ukrainian infantry kit. Fortified firing point blocking in advance, Dragon. Fuel cache before an armored push, Dragon. Reinforced passageway that would take an artillery barrage to collapse, Dragon. Handles it without calling in fire support. Low cost, fast to replace, high psychological effect on anyone sitting in an enclosed position, waiting for a drone that burns through the ceiling. Thermite has existed for a century. Putting it on an FPV with real-time operator guidance, that part was new. Skiff. Flying wing. Built by Culver Alvation. Serial production since 2021. 80 units purchased for Ukraine's army of drones in August 2022. You're a targeting officer. Autumn 2022. Kherson counteroffensive. Ukrainian forces are reclaiming settlements faster than maps can be updated. Your artillery needs confirmed positions, not grid squares, not approximate locations, confirmed. Which building, which entrance, which vehicle, at which coordinates. You have one tool that gives you that from altitude, in silence, without risking a crew. That tool is Skiff. Flying wing design, long endurance, quiet flight, minimal thermal signature. It doesn't carry bombs. That is not its job. Its job is to turn the word maybe into a coordinate. What most people miss, every artillery shell costs money Ukraine doesn't have. You don't shoot at maybe, you shoot at confirmed. The difference between a grid square and an exact coordinate isn't a small efficiency gain. It's the difference between 4 shells to kill a target and 1. Across thousands of fire missions, that math decides whether your stockpile lasts the campaign or runs out in week 3. Skiff turns maybe into confirmed, 4 shells into 1. That's the entire value proposition. UT, Ukrainian for fierce. 1,000 kilometers of range, speed between 200 and 300 kilometers per hour, 75 kilogram warhead. Navigation that combines inertial, satellite, and jamming-resistant algorithms. It holds its course even when Russian electronic warfare tries to knock it off track. In the summer of 2023, Ukrainian long-range drones began hitting oil depots inside Russia, refineries in Saratov Oblast, fuel storage in Krasnodar, infrastructure that Russian military planners had considered safe rear territory since the start of the war. UT is part of what made that possible. What most people miss, the destroyed depot is real, but secondary. The primary effect is what happens to Russian air defense allocation. Every system pulled back to protect the fuel depot in Saratov is one less system shooting at Ukrainian troops in Zaporizhia. Russia has to choose, defend the front or defend the rear. Defend everything and you're thin everywhere. Pick what to protect and you advertise what you're willing to sacrifice. UT doesn't just destroy targets, it forces strategic decisions. Every flight is a tax on Russian attention, and attention on a 1,000-kilometer front is finite. Leleka, 100. Leleka, Ukrainian for stork. Built by Deviro. Adopted by Ukrainian Armed Forces, May 2021. October 2018. The Ukrainian military is running a joint training exercise in the sky over Lysychansk. A Leleka 100 is playing the role of a Russian Orlan 10. Mi-24 helicopter crews are hunting it, practicing intercept procedures for drones in airspace where air defense missiles would be inappropriate. October 13th, same month, a real Russian Orlan 10 appears over Lysychansk, and Mi-24 is dispatched. The crew executes exactly what they trained. The Orlan goes down. Debris falls near Borivka. The Leleka training directly produced that kill. You hand launch it. No runway, no catapult, no infrastructure. One person into the wind, and it climbs. 3 hours of flight time. Day camera or thermal, depending on the module you attach. Real-time targeting coordinates. Operates in rain, snow, wind up to 20 meters per second. Temperatures from -20 to +40. What most people miss, when it loses signal, the Leleka doesn't fall. It switches to inertial mode, holds its last heading, and keeps flying until the operator re-establishes contact or it reaches a pre-programmed return point. In an EW-saturated environment, that's the difference between losing a drone and getting it back. November 2023, Leleka LR appears. 90 kilometers range, improved EW resistance. Production moved to a Ukrainian-Czech joint company operating inside the EU. Hand-launched, all-weather, modular, comes back. For a platoon commander in a tree line in Donetsk Oblast, this is what tells you what's on the other side before you walk into it. Peklo. Peklo, hell in English, not subtle, not meant to be. Long-range cruise configuration, over 1,000 kilometers of range, cruising speed around 150 kilometers per hour, 20-kilogram warhead with modular fuse options. You configure the charge for the target material. Hardened concrete gets a different fuse than a fuel tank. The same platform, different payload, different effect. Navigation runs on inertial plus satellite with waypoint routing. In the spring 2024 campaign against Russian energy infrastructure, Ukrainian strike drones flew routes that avoided radar coverage by threading terrain, river valleys, low-altitude corridors, blind spots in overlapping air defense. Peklo's flight computer handles that. You plan the waypoints, it finds the path. Peklo flies in waves, not one drone at one target, multiple drones hitting multiple nodes in a compressed time window, or sequentially to exhaust response capacity before the next one arrives. It's systemic pressure, not one hit. Supply depot hit, resupply delayed. EW node destroyed, blind spot opens for other systems. Rail junction damaged, convoy rerouted through longer paths, arriving late, burning more fuel. Each hit degrades tempo, and tempo is what wins or loses operations. Peklo is a tempo machine. You don't run it to win one engagement, you run it to make every engagement on the other side slightly harder than the last. AQ-400, Scythe. The Scythe, AQ-400, and the logic here is different from everything so far. Range, approximately 750 kilometers. Speed, 180 to 200 kilometers per hour. Warhead, 30 kilograms. Target profile, oil refineries, fuel storage, manufacturing facilities, logistics hubs. Cost, low. That's the doctrine. Every Russian air defense interceptor costs multiples of what the Scythe costs. When you send a wave at a defended zone, you force a math problem that has no clean solution. Intercept everything and burn through your interceptor stockpile faster than it can be replenished. Let some through and accept infrastructure on fire. The answer is always some version of both, which means the Scythe doesn't need 100% penetration rate to be effective. 30% penetration is 30% of a refinery offline, 30% of a fuel supply chain disrupted, 30% of a logistics node delayed. What most people miss, in combined operations, the Scythe plays the opening act. They saturate defenses, they force radar systems to switch on and expose their positions. They drain interceptor stocks. Then, precision platforms come through the windows that open. It's not that one Scythe is powerful, it's that enough Scythes become more powerful than the sum of their parts. This is the drone that turned attrition economics into an offensive instrument. A country with no navy did that, with a drone that cost a fraction of what it threatened. That's not a technology story, that's what happens when you have no choice and you build one anyway. The fleet that retreated from Sevastopol wasn't beaten by a navy, it was beaten by engineers in Kyiv who decided the math could work differently. Part 2 is already built. More platforms, more doctrine, and the full story of what Ukraine did to Russia's navy with boats that cost less than a used car. If you're not subscribed, you'll miss it. If this changed how you think about modern war, the like button is right there.